Welcome back to another episode of Growth Marketers Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Rowe. Today we had a guest with us in the studio, or virtually in the studio. Her name was Nicole Koharik, and she is really a career marketer, career B2B marketer. She's held a number of leadership positions in the marketing space, marketing communications, everything from manufacturing to healthcare manufacturing, and now works for a company called PartsSource, which is really kind of a double-sided marketplace serving the healthcare industry. And it sounds like a really cool and innovative company. I know a lot of manufacturing companies we work with struggle trying to break into the healthcare space. And so her company helps that as one aspect, but she'll explain more about what PartsSource does in her background. But very educated marketer, believes in a lot of the same things that we preach here at 1IMS. So we got into a couple of good topics and hopefully provide some value for all you listeners. Please give us a like and a subscribe, share the podcast with a friend. But for now, we'll jump right in. All right. We are joined today by a guest, Nicole Koharik. She has been really a lifelong B2B marketer. She's been in B2B marketing pretty much her entire professional career. And her most recent position, or her current position, is as the Senior Director of Enterprise Marketing and Corporate Communications for a company called PartsSource. So welcome, Nicole. We're happy to have you. First, for our listeners, if you wouldn't mind kind of giving us a little bit of background on yourself, but also PartsSource and what PartsSource does and what your current role entails.
Thank you, Taylor. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Absolutely.
As you said, I am a lifelong B2B marketer with a passion. Actually spent 19 of my years in manufacturing environments before I joined PartsSource, my current employer. And PartsSource is a 20-year-old healthcare technology company that serves over 5,000 healthcare providers, hospitals, acute care, and 6,000 suppliers, including all major OEMs, original equipment manufacturers around the United States. So we're kind of in the middle, connecting those two and really focused on improving the reliability and resiliency of the medical equipment supply chain. And we have the leading online marketplace, so e-commerce, for medical equipment parts and services.
Perfect. So we appreciate that. And one of the reasons we're excited to have you on is, as I mentioned to you off air, majority of our content and our focus and the guests that we've brought on have been focused on, I guess you would look at it as kind of external marketing, right? The brand positioning, the inbound marketing strategies for, improving visibility and driving traffic to websites, those type of things. And I know you have experience in that, and we'll get into that. But your current role is more of an internal communications role, correct? So can you kind of walk us through, the differences between the two? Because I'm sure there's a lot of marketers out there that is the majority of their role is focusing on internal communication. So what does that entail and what does that mean at PartsSource?
Sure. It's exciting because when I think about my career, I'll just give a little bit of background. I actually started, my education is in communications. My degree is, my undergrad is in public relations and communications. And I was the PR intern at my college. So I started in public relations, which I am now back to. And it's great because I have the opportunity to build PartsSource's first corporate communications team focused on both internal and external stakeholders and really telling our brand story and helping everyone we serve, our healthcare providers, our OEMs, our suppliers, and those we partner with about who we are and how we're quickly evolving to serve the evolving needs in the marketplace. So my role consists of content marketing, which is also a passion of mine, as well as employee communications, executive communications, and really telling our story through multiple channels, including our corporate social media. My team manages our LinkedIn, for example, a very important platform for telling our story and engaging our stakeholders.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the content marketing piece. It's something we talk about on nearly every podcast about the importance of not only creating valuable content, focusing on the quality of that content rather than kind of just going through the motions, which obviously in the communications role, PR, that's extremely important, more than, even more so than people who may be in a role where they're creating blog posts for SEO purposes or something like that, where they don't make as much of an emphasis on the quality of the content, which of course they should. So I want to kind of get into your, content marketing strategy, at least the content that you own or your team owns. How do you go about developing, a content calendar? What does that content creation process look like? Do you develop it all internally? Are you using external partners? How does that work?
Well, just like you said, Taylor, I think when I think about content, it's ultimately about value creation. How can we create value for those we serve in terms of education, inspiration, and helping them to understand new ways to think about their problems? And my team has been really working hard on a content strategy for the organization that really starts with our business strategy. So that's one of the things, I think about when in all my years of experience, the best strategies in marketing or communications really start with a sound understanding of that business strategy. What are we trying to accomplish? So what I did is I lined up every business goal that we have for the year with a kind of mini content strategy. What are we trying to do? Whether it's conditioning, a certain audience for understanding a new offering, whether it's really, demand generation and trying to get that engagement in order to provide a conversation or a door opening for, if you will, for a salesperson, or even if it's just repositioning the company. Our name is PartsSource, and we're regarded as a parts company because that was our past. But we're doing so many great things now, and that's one of my major challenges and opportunities is to help reposition the company with the right communications, so everyone is not only aware of what we do and what we can offer them, but we're really building that top of funnel awareness and understanding of how we can help with the innovation that we've driven over the past several years, way beyond parts, into launching the world's largest service platform, for example. So there's so many things that we're doing, and that each of those strategies and growth opportunities has a unique strategy that starts with business strategy. And then after we look at that, we look at the persona. Who are we targeting? And we have multiple personas. So I have my team structured to focus on where I have a specialist for each persona, because I believe when you really get deep into understanding that persona and living with that persona and understanding the unique goals and aspirations and needs and pain points of that persona, you can really deliver valuable content. And you can't really do that without it. So it's so important to understand those personas and to validate that through research. So that's something we did recently through a branding project we're working on, is validating those personas and making sure that those personas that guide the content are on track. And we actually had a great working session in the office recently where we talked about what are the key themes, communication themes that we want to communicate. And I think that's an important piece of it, because if you identify the top 3 themes for each audience aligned with their goals and aspirations and pain points, then you can really make sure that the scope is not too large and that you're creating relevant content, but it's also scalable and you can create enough content for that certain audience.
Wow. Yeah, there was a lot in there, a lot of great points that I completely agree with. The first being, we typically pose a question, right? If we look at our job as marketers and we work with our clients, the first question we have to kind of ask ourselves is, how do we get everyone in our market to know who we are and understand what we offer?
Exactly.
Right? Really, that's the job as marketers. And you talked about a couple of challenges there. For many companies, you have one scenario where we kind of look at ourselves as, we hear this all the time, like we're kind of the best kept secret, right, in the industry. If we only could get more people to know who we are, we'd win more customers. We have great customer service, great, product, great service, whatever that is. And then the other piece that you mentioned, which is something that I think is a little unique in terms of what we talk about a lot on the show, but not unique to marketers, is changing the perspective within our customer base, right? Is we're seen as, this parts company, but we're trying to transform, we're trying to evolve, and we have so much more to offer, and we have to kind of change the internal perspective of what our customers think of us or how they think of us, right? So that's definitely a unique challenge. And the other piece that I thought was very interesting that I want to kind of break down is, so it sounds like you said you have a specialist or a content writer specifically for each persona that you're writing messaging for. Is that correct?
Yes, we don't have one for every persona, but I have a person assigned to each persona.
Got it. So you have people that own each of those
right.
personas.
So if
I think that's a great idea.
I'll break it down a little bit. Top of funnel prospects who we're nurturing into a relationship with our contracted flagship solution, PartsSource Pro, for example. So there's one person who focuses on our social media and top of funnel awareness and content for that audience. And then at the other side, if you think about the journey, I have someone who focuses solely on existing clients and communicating to them around all the platform features and how they can get the most value out of the solution and the relationship. So if you think about all the way from top of funnel to loyalty and experience, very different objectives, right? So I have two different people focused on those areas.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the things we talk about a lot is like the team structure, essentially, or the set of skill sets that it takes to really have a content engine. One of which is kind of what we call a subject matter expert, right? Which in your case, you're looking at as someone who really is ingrained with that mindset of each of these personas, right? And you could have someone managing multiple personas. Could be one person that has multiple skill sets, but you still need that skill set, right? And then really you still need, whether again, that's the same person, but you need someone has that creative component to it, right? Because now we're creating content, whether that's video content, written content, blog posts, email, social media, right? You need someone who can actually take that expertise and translate it into these digital channels that we're trying to leverage. And then obviously we need to distribute the content, right? So how are we promoting it? And if we get into, I'm not sure if your team gets into, paid promotion on social media or anything like that, or if it's all organic, but that's a whole different skill set, right? And then obviously you have someone like yourself who's, kind of the visionary and strategist over top of everything to, manage and make sure that the team is, executing at a high level. So I'm curious on the different skill sets that you have there. Do you have, like if you're writing a blog post or you're sharing on social media, is that the same person, or do you have other team members coming in and helping with graphics and measuring different metrics or analytics on social media? How does that part of that team structure work?
Sure. We have a bench of external partners, I'll say, that help us with the packaging, so graphic design, and internally, in addition to my new team, in marketing, we also have a digital, performance marketing team, and we have an operations leader. And I work closely with them to work on, the metrics and the setting up the right reporting and Google Analytics and everything. So my team can really focus on strategy, messaging, content conception, and production and delivery. So my team kind of takes it from the concept all the way in the planning, all the way to sometimes we do a mix. So we'll write internally in some cases, and then in some cases we'll have a third party from the bench of writers and graphic designers that we partner with. But I like to think about those people as an extension of our team because it's so important and it's complicated. So we work with people and really cultivate those relationships so they understand who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. And it's worked out pretty well. We also have kind of, for the way I think about kind of separating them is like major technical content pieces like white papers, for example. We like to work with industry experts. So in addition to our internal SMEs or subject matter experts across the business and our own leadership team, we also work with industry thought leaders, and we're always working with them kind of on a advisory basis to understand what's happening in the industry and getting their fresh perspective on it and integrating that into our story and making sure that our communications and our content are really relevant for the challenges that our partners are facing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have a perfect, setup and structure there, and I really like the way that you're thinking about this and ultimately going to market with this. Did you mention earlier that this was a new division, or you were the first one in this position at the company?
That's correct. It's exciting. When I was preparing for this and thinking about my career, I think I thrive most in new situations, right? So being able to establish a new team, kind of an extension of the marketing team. We're still part of marketing, but now marketing. When I started, marketing was 4 people, and that was only less than 3 years ago. And now we're one of 3 teams within marketing. So rapidly growing company. And I'm really thrilled that we're able to expand the team to be able to deliver on the goals that the company has set for itself. But yes, corporate communications is a new function within PartsSource. And I came in actually as a product marketing director. So focused on strategy and process for commercializing new products. And I learned a lot about the portfolio and the business in that position. And then I was moved into the enterprise role with the corporate communications, kind of wearing 2 hats for a while. And we've recently hired someone to take on the enterprise piece. So now I can focus on the corporate communications piece and really building a content engine and building that awareness that we need in the marketplace and engaging our customers in a meaningful way through that relationship.
Yeah, no, that's impressive and exciting, because we work with a lot of marketers and a lot of companies that maybe are immature in terms of their understanding of marketing and really what it takes to be successful. And they try to do everything that you're talking about with, like you said, that 3 or 4 person marketing team, right? And I'm curious on what challenges you had, or was this spearheaded by you and your marketing team, or was this something that came from the top down of hey, we really need to grow and expand our marketing resources? Was that something that you got a lot of internal pushback on, or was something that was pretty natural and brought on from the top down?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because it was actually a both and. Our CMO is amazing, and he runs, all of marketing, and I lead one team, and we work closely together. And we came to the conclusion that this was the right approach, especially given the aspirations and the growth goals that we have as a company. And as you said, awareness is everything, and we have a lot of awareness to build because we are one of those best kept secrets, right? So I'm excited about the challenge to undo that and make sure everyone knows who PartsSource is and all the great work we're doing for mission critical operations. And at the same time, we were doing an analysis of our go-to-market strategy. And that was one of the recommendations, to pull out a team to focus on building the brand and telling our story and creating that top of funnel awareness and managing the public relations and everything else that comes with it. So it worked out great, because on a parallel path, 2 groups kind of came to the same conclusion.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So one other thing I wanted to make sure we touch on is you talked about, starting with those business goals, business objectives, working backwards from there and saying, okay, if we want to accomplish this, what does that look like, right? Which ultimately led to, well, we need to expand our marketing resources. We need to create more content. We need to engage our audience. We need to, focus on education and value-based content. That's great. It's a logical conclusion. Where we see a lot of companies, I guess, give up on that strategy is when it comes, 6 months down the road, a year down the road. We've been creating all this content. Maybe we're not sure how to measure success, or we're not sure how to draw a line between our activities and our ultimate business goal, which is ultimately driving revenue, right? So how do you guys measure success internally? What sort of KPIs are you looking at when it comes to social media and PR and communications?
Sure. So because we're just starting out this function, we wanted to create a baseline. So what we did is we looked at our audience, right? So part of the goal is to expand our audience. So for example, I have a goal this year to expand our LinkedIn following, which we just achieved 8,000 followers yesterday. So I was excited about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I have a goal to increase that to 10,000 this year. So expanding our audience is an important piece of it. That's one. And then also looking at not only that, who's following and is our message, visible to the right people, but also are they engaging with the content? So content consumption on our website, and how much time are they spending, and what are they looking at? And we're working on getting smarter at that with the right technologies. But right now we have a great resources section on our corporate website with our webinars and our blogs and our white papers and all of the great content we do. And I have the great opportunity to, drive more traffic. And that's one of the key measures, is looking at on a monthly basis, our website traffic, especially not only to the e-commerce site, but to that resource section, and how are people engaging with our content. So working on understanding that more. And then the third area is really around understanding kind of the response or the feedback, right? Every time we communicate, it gets tricky, this one, because a lot of it comes from our sales team, and they tell us how customers are responding. But I'm really excited. So, for example, we just started in December an ongoing cadence of communications around the current global supply chain challenges. And we're getting great feedback from the sales team that our customers are really appreciating this information. We're proactively communicating trends to our customers around what's happening with certain product categories and certain suppliers, and they're appreciating that information. So we don't always see it in the open rates and clicks, which are kind of, a little bit of vanity metrics. But what I really care about is, what does the customer say? And when, our account director comes and tells me, hey, this customer took your communication and put it on the bulletin board and used it in a meeting to talk about what's happening and to help other people manage expectations, that's a win for me. So I do care, in addition to the hard metrics, about, what we hear in terms of how customers are really receiving that information.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. If you're listening to this and you're new into a marketing role, or you're leading a marketing role, and you're not doing those two things, which is talking to your salespeople and talking to your customers, I really think that's a big missed opportunity. Because that story you just told, something we hear all the time. Somebody took they took a screenshot of something that they saw in a social media post, and then they chatted it in Slack to someone internally. And then, they, like you said, print it off, put it on a bulletin board. None of that is going to show up in an analytics report or an attribution report. But that's how people communicate, right? Is they communicate to each other offline, especially when you're trying to spread the word about something internally, or through chat or through, Messenger, things that you're not going to be able to see and measure. And you could easily give up on something, if it didn't have as much, like you said, vanity metrics as you thought it would. But it's about the quality, right? Especially in B2B marketing, it's about who is actually consuming our content. What are they doing with that? How are they interacting and engaging? So I love that, making sure that we're aligning our metrics with the intention of the marketing channel or whatever we're trying to accomplish, right? A lot of people, I think, lose sight of that, and they say, okay, well, this is awareness-based campaign. Great. And okay, we got all these views and these likes and these visits to our website, but we didn't generate any leads. So, but that was not the intention of that particular campaign, right? That was an awareness campaign. We should use awareness metrics. So all great stuff there. Hopefully, if you're listening, you're taking notes, because those are exactly what we preach to our clients as well. I want to shift gears here quickly and talk about your experience in the manufacturing space. So one of the industries that we really focus on as a company at 1IMS, and clients that we work with. We even had some similarities in terms of, we work with some industrial coating companies. I know you had experience in the industrial coating space. So talk to us a little bit about the couple of manufacturing companies that you worked for, and we'll dive into that.
Happy to, Taylor. I learned so much early in my career, and I was really fortunate to have a leadership position pretty early on. My first leadership position was for, as you mentioned, the industrial floor coatings manufacturer, Garland Floor Company. And when I started at Garland, I was a marketing specialist, and I was focused on really more marketing communications. And then the person who recruited me actually ended up leaving the company. He was the marketing manager, and it was a very, as you said, one of those small teams where there's a couple people trying to do everything. And I was just hungry to, dive in and learn and do what I could and have all these experiences. Well, he left the company. So then my position ended up reporting up through sales, which actually was a huge blessing in disguise, because at the time I was like, well, that doesn't make sense, because I really didn't understand the whole, sales and marketing. I was in my 20s. But at the same time, it was great because I did get that firsthand experience and engagement with sales. And I learned how to integrate sales and marketing. And I was quickly promoted to a marketing manager and basically running marketing for the entire company. And I remember when I was promoted, I asked for one direct report so I could have some help. And I ended up having responsibility for the entire sales support team. So that worked out great, because in addition to kind of the marketing planning and execution and results measurement nationally for the company, I ended up learning pretty quickly how to integrate sales and marketing and managing those sales support reps who were making appointments for our sales team, and really working very closely with the sales team. And I was often brought out into the field to present and work on collaborative marketing with our contractor partners. So we were a manufacturer of industrial polyurethane and epoxy floor coatings for concrete. And one of the innovative things that I did in that role was established a program, which was a cooperative marketing program, where we realized quickly that we didn't have access to the end user or the facility. Typically, it was through the contractor. So we went to market with the contractor and created a co-op marketing program with an incentive for them to buy in. And it was great because it worked really well. It was not only successful, it strengthened our relationships with our contractor partners, and it really led to significant more I'd say insight from the end users, because we were receiving that information back into the office, and I got to learn more about the end users through the information, because we finally had access to them because we were going in with our contractors.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common, for a lot of manufacturing companies to have that disconnect, because they're selling through distribution partners, channel partners. And so, some companies do a really good job of, exactly like you said, marketing, co-marketing, marketing on their behalf, marketing to that end customer, communicating to the end customer, and then handing the leads off to the distribution channels. Obviously, giving those reps leads strengthens that relationship, because they're happy to get more business without having to pay for it. So it's really a win-win situation, but not a lot of manufacturing companies do that. And the fact that you were doing that, back in the day, and having that sales and marketing alignment is pretty impressive. I'm curious, at what point in your career, between either Garland or Gojo, which we can talk about as well, did the main marketing channel, if you will, shift more towards a digital inbound marketing versus maybe some more traditional marketing efforts?
That's a great question. I was reflecting on that and the change in marketing overall from back then and now. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about those days, but it was a great exercise, because I did realize that, back in the floor coatings days and early Gojo days, it was very, event driven, which I think is actually still consistent at PartsSource. We do a lot of event marketing as well. And then it was also very print heavy, right? So back, one of my favorite projects and success stories from the floor coating days was literally creating, I have a graphic design minor from college. I haven't designed a thing in years, but that definitely paid off and helped me in my career, because I was able to take in a lot of the brochure design and everything for that company and save a lot of money and reallocate it to these new innovative programs. programs. And I designed our most successful direct mail for this product called ChemiTop 900. It was the toughest resurfacer product. So it was all about, how you could do anything to this floor and it would not, it would last for so long, and it was impact resistant. And I had a lot of fun with that. And I remember I designed that while I was pregnant with my son. And when I came back and I learned, how successful it was, and we had all these responses, so that's going way back to the paper responses that used to come in the mail, those lead forms. But it was great. And it was the most successful direct mail piece that, the company had ever done. And for me, I didn't realize it at the time, but that taught me the whole process from beginning to end, to planning, to writing, to designing, to targeting. It was really my introduction to lead generation, and it was really successful. So we don't do that anymore. We definitely don't do direct mail anymore. But I think when I was at Gojo, my focus shifted quite a bit to enterprise marketing. So cross department kind of initiatives that had value across different markets. So Gojo has many vertical markets, including healthcare, which is actually where I fell in love with healthcare and why I ended up at PartsSource, because I really wanted to. I'm a very service-oriented person, and I have a passion for healthcare. So at Gojo rather, I had the opportunity to kind of apply those same things that I learned at Garland around research and insight and customers. And instead of contractors at Gojo, it was distributors and those relationships. And same kind of thing. But instead of direct mail, it was really around social media and email and more digital communication. So definitely saw a change. And even less advertising. I think we did a lot of print advertising back in my floor coating days. One of my favorite, another fun PR story is at Garland Floor. There was this Plant Services magazine, and we were able to capture a feature story about our floor coatings company called the Fab Floor. And we actually reenacted the Beatles album cover. And it was, people from the company. So that was a lot of fun. I can't say I get to do things like that anymore because we're not really focused on that. But I am still focused on earning recognition for PartsSource and gaining that awareness, as we talked about earlier. But it's definitely, instead of kind of as broad as it used to be, it was kind of like it was SIC codes back then, and now it's personas, right? Like, how do you target? Before, people were kind of the targeting was more like criteria based, and now it's about what's happening, in their heads and in their hearts, and what do they want to accomplish. So I think that's another piece of that evolution from marketing back then and now.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because people are so much more accessible today that you could reach them so much easier because there's so many channels, but that almost makes it harder and overwhelming because, like you said, back in the day, it was you just sent a direct mail, or you were written about in a publication, or you took out an ad in a newspaper, or you had a billboard. I mean, a TV spot, radio spot. I mean, you had like 6 options, right? And now we have like 1,000 options, and we have a half a second to, capture someone's attention. So you have to be everywhere, and you have to, like you said, focus on their mindset and their stage of the buyer's journey and those type of things, their level of awareness, level of education, versus just let's pull a list of SAC codes and run a direct mailer and have a funny slogan on there, a funny picture, right, to try to capture their attention. So it's interesting how that's evolved. Like I said, it's easier through technology to know and guarantee you're going to reach someone, but it just seems like it's even harder to really capture their attention and provide value. So
that's a great point. I think it's definitely a challenge, and it's harder to manage the brand message too, because there's so many channels, so many touch points. And I like to say with branding, every touch matters. So it's way beyond marketing's control, right? So we have to really work across the organization to help get everyone on the same page.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Nicole, I appreciate you joining us today. Hopefully all of you listeners learned something. I think the way that Nicole approaches marketing and obviously your experience and the way that your career has progressed, and you've kind of seen a digital transformation, right? And been able to been on the forefront of that with all of your roles in these different marketing organizations. So that's exciting. One more time for our listeners, if someone is listening that might be able to leverage PartsSource, who is PartsSource for? Who do you serve, and who should use it and why should they use it?
Sure. So PartsSource is the leading online marketplace for healthcare equipment and the medical device supply chain. We serve over 5,000 hospitals and over 6,000 OEMs. I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I know you have a manufacturing audience. The work we do for OEMs is really groundbreaking too. So it's not just about providers, it's about partnering with our suppliers and helping them expand their reach and helping them with insights and analytics that only we can provide to help them improve that customer experience. So really innovative company, growing and very, focused on serving the mission in healthcare. And we're hiring too. So there's also many remote positions available. So definitely we're in Aurora, Ohio. You might be more familiar with Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I live. But definitely check out PartsSource for a great company to join. And I couldn't be happier in my career. So follow PartsSource on LinkedIn. Help me get to that 10,000.
You got to get that 10,000.
Yeah. And I'd love to connect with anyone who'd like to connect personally as well.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Nicole. Thanks for joining us. And for all you listeners, please give us a like and subscribe as well. And tune in next week for a new episode.
Thanks, Taylor.
Growth Marketers is brought to you by One IMS, helping you reach new heights through integrated marketing. One world, one web, one IMS.